and welcome to another Scots Whay Hae podcast. And today I'm joined by Nandini and Himadri, who are co-choreographers and performers from Theiya Arts. And we're here to talk about Maiden and Mother Hoare, a new interdisciplinary mixed media performance, which will be on tour in November. Hello to both of you.
Hi,
Thank you for
thank
having
you for
us.
having us. Yeah.
It's an absolute pleasure, and I'm really looking forward to hearing more about this production. So first of all, tell us about Maiden Mother Hoare.
So, Maiden Mother Hoare, as you correctly said, is a mixed media interdisciplinary production, which is sort of a crossover between a live performance and an exhibition. It explores the ideas of gendered identity, um, collective and individual power. It kind of weaves through the tensions about agency and autonomy on a physical female body or a woman body. Um, so what we are trying to do with Maiden Mother Hoare is to have a space to create a dialogical sort of space with the audience. It's set in a way that it is almost like an exhibition that you're walking in, and at certain times you see live performances. But what's very important is the audience is invited to be part of the creative process, obviously at your own choice and discretion as much as you would like to. And they speak to us through responses that they write on postcards that we have hanging everywhere. Not everywhere, in a postcard library, basically. And then we respond to those postcards. That is a part of sort of co-creative process that we do. And other than this very important part that we really love, there is in the beginning a game, which is almost like an icebreaker. And we invite everyone to either come and watch or play with us. It's based on a children's rhyme. And then the second thing is we have Reading Corner. So everything that we've collected through our research is part of the exhibition for people to read. Along with there is visual projections on the floor, which then eventually we come out and dance on. So that is also available for the audience to engage with while we're not performing. So that is how, in a nutshell, you will come and see the space and engage with it.
There's so much going on there. So when audiences come along, they're almost entering the performance space themselves. Is that right?
Absolutely, yes, yes. And
Yeah.
they're equally performers as we are, I suppose.
I think that was something very important for us to kind of experience this with the audiences, that this is not something that we are passively asking the audiences to have a look at, but that we wanted the audience to come on a journey with us through the process, but also through the years of reflections and the dialogue that we have created through the production. The postcard thing that Himadri was talking about, we call it a postcard library because it's almost an archive of
Right.
people we have engaged with through the years. It has our responses, it has the audiences through our sharings, it has people who've been part of the different sharings before. So we're kind of asking the audiences to join us in this journey as we reflect on our experiences of womanhood, but also not womanhood in a very rigid way, but broadly thinking of gendered identity, broadly thinking of us in relation to the society, and the themes of oppression, but then also resistance. So there is something about being on a journey together, through the different sharings, through the different showcases and performances. So the audiences who are part of one of the shows that's coming up will also be part of the next show that's put up. So there's something about a continuity to it.
That's absolutely fascinating. It's, so the what's happened previously almost changes what's coming next.
Absolutely.
And I think it's still quite rare to have theatre that's so interactive. People are used to sitting in the seats and
Yeah.
being quite passive in that way. But particularly with the themes and subject matter you're looking at, it's something that everyone will have their own thoughts about.
Yes.
And
Sorry, go on, go on.
I think that kind of difference, it's part of our kind of, I don't want to say theoretical framework, but almost like our collaborative methodology that happened with CBSS Center for Biomedicine, Self and Society, was that kind of, we want those different voices to be in this. We wanted the project to be transnational. We wanted the project to be intersectional and actually have that complexity. That we didn't want to say our perspective. We didn't want it to represent womanhood in any way, but we wanted to kind of become a home for different experiences. And how much ever different that is, that's the richness of it. That it becomes more chaotic, more complex, and that's the best part of it.
So does that interaction with the audience, does that change performances?
Yeah, so especially the postcard where we perform, that is pretty much in response to what the audience write behind. We do, through like the improvisational aspect of dance, created some scores, and we have like certain aspects of it as we know how this is going to probably start or where are we placed. But a lot of the movement and a lot of we use a lot of spoken word as well in one of the responses. They come based on what the audience are talking to us about. But there is also the game, which as a structure of its own does not change, but people's reactions are always very interesting. I'm trying not to give away what happens in the game because
Sure.
people would like to come and play with it. But there's a slow realization of something that's happening in the game, and that sort of is always varied, and that sort of, when you look from the outside, is also a performance on its own, and that is changing and evolving every time we do this.
And I mentioned that it's going to be on tour in November, but there's already been a performance in Edinburgh earlier this month, hasn't it? How did that go? What was that like?
So earlier this month was not a performance, it was a
Okay.
symposium.
Right.
And the symposium was as a result of our artistic fellowship at Center of Biomedicine and Self and Society in University in Edinburgh. And the conversations were around arts-led method of research. So we kind of brought a lot of people who've been working with arts methods in research as capacity. And some of them have been working with that in community settings rather than academic or institutional settings. And we wanted to open that space to have conversation of what is research and how is knowledge made. So it was very the provocative conversations for us, but came out in a very gentle, in a very supportive environment, and was very lovely to have those engaging conversations with people.
I think it goes into that idea of bridging the gap between arts and academia, right? And then we've been rethinking that. What is the gap? How are we bridging it? And there is something through our fellowship where we notice that engaging in an academic format means something. It has a certain hierarchical context to it. And then we started questioning, what is research? How are artists involved in research? Or how is arts almost being made a tool to research? And we wanted to kind of disrupt that. We wanted to kind of think of artistic practice as research in itself and open the space for artists to come and speak to us about what they are doing and speak to academics in center about what they're doing rather than kind of just how arts can be used in research. So there's this thing of boundary breaking almost as to what we think of as artistic practice and research, and make a space for us all to kind of sit and disrupt that for ourselves.
I think that's really interesting because most people would think again of academic practice as not being interactive necessarily, that it is just a research, library based, whatever it might be. But that interaction that you get in theatre in particular, but in other areas of the arts as well, that's a fascinating crossover. And you're collaborating with a number of other organisations. So how did that come about? And how did that in turn then develop the show?
I think our primary collaborators are the Center for Biomedicine, Self and Society. And I think the whole project started with them because in its very initial phases back in the pandemic, we were making an application for an artistic fellowship with the center. And this was like the seeds of this idea of what we are going to do about it, what we're going to do with the fellowship. And we did not end up doing the fellowship, but we did a small pilot stage of Maiden Motherhood. It was called The Story I See. And kind of that collaboration just built with us as to we were engaging with the center and the academics and their work and their reading groups, and then we kind of took that away and made a webcast, movement webcast to it, and the academics responded to that and engaged with that, and then we were like, okay, there is a project in this that we need to keep going with, and then from that Maiden Motherhood was born. And I think with that, we started kind of engaging with Downspace as our venue partners. They were kind enough to give us a residency. So we were kind of in dance space doing the research and development for it and did a sharing there. And Southside Community Center again gave us another residency. Also, we did our second sharing there. So there's like the partnerships came along the process as we were engaging with the communities and with the spaces that we were working in. So I think recently for the symposium we also started collaborating with Queen Margaret University, and I think there's this thing of building connections with that, and which is what we wanted to do with the project, that we wanted to kind of expand it to different spaces, that it's not just in the universities, it's not just in artistic spaces. So I think we're kind of branching out with our partnerships in the same way that we want to branch out with our audiences.
And before we go any further, it would be nice to let people know where they can find out more about it and get tickets.
Yes.
You can find out more about it on our website, theiya.org, which is theiya.org. And our tickets are available on Eventbrite for both places, Assembly Roxy as well as Civic House. Assembly Roxy is happening on 1st of November. There are 2 live performances and also open exhibitions, so people can, if they just want to come and have a wander around the exhibits, that's absolutely possible. And the Civic House is on 15th of November in the evening at 5:30.
And I mistakenly said that you'd performed this already. Have you performed it previously? Have you done performances yet?
So we did a performance at the end of our previous stage, and by performance, it was more of a work in progress sharing, what it was supposed to be at the end of our first stage of support from Creative Scotland. And in that time, we invited audiences, just like it wasn't open to everybody, it was for invited audience from the academic collaborations, from the artistic networks that we are part of, to sort of see how it feels and how people experience it. And once we had that feedback, we went ahead for the next steps of it, as to bring it to more open venues where people can access it. And then we also created different formats of it. As of now that we had a symposium. Then in Assembly Roxy, we have 2 slots, which is live performance with guided elements where everything happens at set times. And then between those 2 performances, the exhibition is open for people to attend as and when they wish. And then there's another part of it which is happening with the university at Being Human Festival, which will further have a panel discussion. So this was also something that came as a feedback, more like a feedback, like a general wondering if there could be some space to sit and discuss after the performance was done. So we created one of the performances to have a panel discussion. And with Civic House, it's the same as we performed in our sharing. People come, experience it with us within the 90 minutes, and then we all leave. So that's how it is.
And as performers, is there an extra sense of jeopardy when you're allowing the audience to be involved in such a way?
There has been a lot of conversations about safety around this when we started this project. And we also thought a lot about what if we get an audience which is probably, let's say, not so gentle in the way they express their uninterest, so to like put it lightly. But I think what we have created for ourselves in the way we respond to it does have certain level of safety and boundary for ourselves as well. So people respond to postcards. We read them, but we personally choose which postcards are we going to respond to.
Yeah.
So there is somewhere even our agency and autonomy comes in that place as to how we engage with what has been written. And probably sometimes it's not just about negative way of people's engagement with it, but also sometimes what people write is emotionally very heavy. Like, I don't have a better word right now, but it's quite a lot to take in emotionally, and maybe we would like to sit with it rather dance with it sometimes. So then in that moment we leave that and then we move on to something else and take another postcard. But we sit with it when we can get a chance to sit with it. Then probably in the next rehearsal we bring it back and we create something about it.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting part of it. I hadn't considered that, but these are such important themes and such a widely discussed that some people's reaction could be quite visceral in all sorts of ways, and emotional as you suggest. And can you expand a bit on the themes that you're covering? I mean, you've mentioned them slightly, but why these themes and why did you want to dig into them?
I think this basically it comes from our lived experience, right? And I think it comes from this fact that we are a collective of women. We are an organization run by women, and we share really close relationships within our community, within between us. And I suppose there is something about how our lived experience of being within our gendered bodies comes into our practice, that we can't separate it. So we can't kind of think of it as a separate theme from us, but this is all something that's been there with us as we explore our practice, thinking about one of our core team members. Is a new mother. So that was already there. As we were thinking of the project, there was a collective member who was going to be a mother soon. So I think these are the things that come with us within our bodies. And as we are sometimes maybe just sitting around pots of chai talking about reproductive health. So I think I cannot say that it came out of somewhere other than the fact that we are women living in gendered bodies in a society that holds certain meaning within that, and that our lived experience is very much part of that. But I think along with that, our collaborators, academic collaborators, are also working on themes of reproductive health and justice. And I think the collaboration was so productive because of how we brought our lived experience into that. And then they had their themes of work already. And we kind of had to think of those intersections, but that happened very organically almost. Like I remember one of the reading groups that we did, we wanted to read material about reproductive health, but very soon it became obvious that there is such vast range of material, and not just academic material. We were like, okay, let's watch this movie, let's watch this short series that's on an OTT, and let's read this newspaper article, and let's read this short story. So we brought in a lot of material, and I think there is something about that that resonates with us and our experiences, and how that comes into our movement then and our practice then. And also our choreographic format then, as to how that shapes the show, that these themes are not small, they're not even tangible sometimes, that they're quite vast, they're very vague, and they're also quite abstract sometimes. Like intersectionality is something that we were thinking with quite a lot, and it's a hard one to kind of be like, we're going to show intersectionality, we cannot show intersectionality. And then we realize that, we are a group of transnational women. Intersectionality is already there in our dynamic. Intersectionality is already there in the room as we come together to speak. And how can we bring that into the choreography? How can we bring that into the project? So I think we started exploring, the beginning point is our lived experience, and then kind of it connects to the material, and then it comes back to the studio, and from there it goes kind of non-linear. But I think there's always this thing of how we bring ourselves and our experiences within our body, our experiences within the world, even as artists, as South Asian artists in particular, and what that means for us and the context that we come from and the work that we are doing right now. So I think all these things kind of build into the themes of what the production is. But I think in a nutshell, it's always hard to put this in a nutshell. We say it's about gendered identities, but also we have realized it's about embodied experiences. It's about reproductive health. It's hard to separate our body from our reproductive health, and it might mean different things to each of us. And then the motherhood mandate. What does it mean to be a mother? Who is a mother? Is gender and being mother similar? So it just kind of grows arms and legs from there. And then it becomes about, it's not a central theme, it's about everything.
Yeah.
It's about our existence within this society and within this world, and what we bring and how we experience it in our moment to moment engagement. And I think, yeah, I'm going off on a bit of a tangent now. So,
No, not at all, because I think I'm thinking of it as a member of the audience, or someone, I think when we go to theatre or we go to dance or something, we don't think of the person behind the performer
yeah.
very often. It's like you go and see it again, it's that idea of it being a passive kind of interaction
Mhm.
rather than this interactive one. But what you're doing by including, I think, the audience in that way is you're almost asking them to consider a performance and a person and what that means, because it is all bound together.
Mm. It's quite interesting because in one of our initial sharings, there was an audience member. This was in Downspace. This was our first ever mini sharing. And we tried out the postcards and audiences responding. And one of the things this audience member said was the moment of realization that what they had written had an impact on people, on real people in real time. So there is something about that, almost it becomes live. These dynamics come alive in that space. It's not even just like passive information taking, but it becomes something quite live even for the audiences and us, like you were asking about the jeopardy, that there is always that thing of the responsibility
Yeah.
that we hold as performers, but then also audiences and what they give to us. Um, I think that thing it is quite interactive in a way, but it's also quite real in a way that this is how things happen about reproductive health, that we are walking and someone randomly says something and there is an impact, and we want to be able to hold that impact and share that impact. And I think that is quite important and central to this project, that it's not spoken about in a different abstract distant way, that it's experienced near for us and for the audiences, that it's quite close to what we experience, how we experience.
And research is ongoing always. And if you've got this conversation with academic side of things and research side of things, I guess, does that change performances as well as it goes? Is that conversation always occurring?
So I think what so far has happened is, before creating It Is As Now, we had reading groups. And as Nandini said, we read variety of stuff. And that kind of left impacts and traces on us and in our brains, and sometimes even in our bodies. And I think it came out within the piece. As of now, we do hope that there would be some more sort of intersections between the academics also probably becoming performers eventually in the future. We toyed with it, hasn't happened yet, but eventually there might be a possibility. But what shifted from, say, July 2023, when this was first shared at Southside Community Center, and then we had a fellowship with the academics, is us again starting to question, is even art accessible sometimes? How do we make space for uh, conversations which are not just them writing things on the postcards? What are other ways of making it open to them, to the audience with us? How else can we engage with the audience? And this is how some of the new formats of things have come. And there have been additions in the exhibits as of now. We also have like a little writing corner for the audience. We are probably getting little Polaroid cameras for them to take some photos that they can either take with themselves or have it there. So it does impact the whole setting, like what we create for, I think more than the performance, it impacts the experience for audience at the end of the day. Because somehow what we do in movement is slightly on a second level here than what the audience interacts and experiences with us while they are in the space.
But also, I want to add to that. I think this is something I noticed, that since the beginning of Maiden Mother Hor, and this is 2021, yeah, 2020, 2021, when we started having these conversations, I can notice that I have changed as a person. And because I also do academic work, I know that my academic practice has changed very much. I was in the middle of a doctorate doing this, and my thesis changed quite a lot. And I know our collaborators have said the same, that their work has shifted, and we know that our practice has shifted. So I think there is something about the fact that we are shifting as people. So therefore, the performances are shifting and growing arms and legs.
Yeah.
And the different strands of engagement that we are using is also growing arms and legs with that. Because then we start becoming people who are exploring and exploring constantly with the academics, but also with ourselves. And then they are exploring things by themselves. So I think there's like a lot of offshoots from it. Um, so maybe Maiden Motherhood in itself, there are some things that are shifting and changing within it, but there's also a lot of shifting and changing happening on the peripheries of it. Like the conversation series we did, the symposium, there's like lot of new offshoots. And when in the symposium this time, we had some of the people who were there engaging with us said that we miss having these kind of spaces, and we've never had these kind of spaces. We want to be able to come and just chat and think about these difficult things and about our practice. So maybe this is something we're playing with, of should we just start a series of these spaces maybe? It's exciting, but also it comes from how we are shifting as people and as an organization, but also where for me, where my research is going from this, how my research has changed, and as an artist, how my practice has changed, how our collective has changed.
The idea of academics performing is interesting because I know enough academics that a lot of them would love the chance to perform. There's definitely that. And also, I think the idea of the conversation in terms of audience and the performance is something, it seems to me, which will also take place once they've finished, once they leave the space. Conversations will be had, which is almost, is an important aspect of it as well, I think.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
mean, that is what we wanted for the show.
So can you give us some background, some wider background to Theiya Arts Dance Collective? It'd be nice for people to get a kind of what else you've done and what else you do.
I can go. So Theiya Arts Dance Collective, we have very recently found a way to explain ourselves, to be honest. So Theiya Arts as an organization is an organization to support and create South Asian art work and art workers. So what Theiya Arts Dance Collective is the performing company of Theiya Arts. It currently contains 5 artists and they perform 5 different South Asian dance forms, which include Bharatanatyam, Kathak, Kandyan, Kuchipudi, and some of us dabble with other art forms like flamenco, jazz, and stuff on the side. And what brings us together is to talk of arts as activism and reach out to the audience through a very different lens than what South Asian arts has always been seen as. At least in Scotland. I know I will not talk about UK. Wider UK has very different kind of variety of work that is being seen. So in Scotland, we are kind of wanting to speak about contemporary topics because one, it's our lived experience, and also create spaces to take South Asian arts to spaces that it usually does not reach, or the audience does not sort of feel like they can engage with it. So working on both those aspects of it. And have I missed something? So yeah, so it's like 5 of us. We create these works. Maiden Mother Horde was our first collaboration together.
Right.
And currently we have another project in the background called The Ticking Clock. It's about climate justice. It was performed in Edinburgh Fringe in 2022. It's still in its changes and morphing stage right now. Will probably come back alive at some other point. And other than this, we kind of take our work into community settings as performers. While we work in the community in a very different setting sometimes, but also the dance company goes to different performances where we're there with the community. We go to the community rather than bringing audiences to us. And that's us.
And Nandini, you mentioned the importance of space and the importance of space for people to perform and to collect together, to be together. And that's an important part of it, I guess, and to find community spaces as well as maybe the bigger ones.
Yeah, I mean, a strand of Theiya Arts is called the Theiya Connect, and it was born from the sense of we need a community as South Asian artists, but also as artists we need a community. So we want to have a strand of work which is dedicated to that kind of making spaces where artists can come together. We recently had a small project called Collabs, which was kind of providing small bursaries to artists to collaborate and to take work into community settings. So within Thea, we have that sense of we have to create these communities for ourselves, but also we enjoy that. We enjoy creating the communities. So I think Thea's work revolves around that in multiple ways, like through the Arts Dance Collective, where we kind of create communities through arts as activism, where Thea in the community goes into third sector organizations, the hospital, and spaces where we can take the art forms to. And Thea Connect is kind of our home for artists, where we can come together. And then there is our school, where we have our annual summer showcases. It is for people to learn South Asian art forms. So I think we kind of dabble with different ways of creating that community and creating those spaces. And some of those are maybe more like the symposium was more that sense of geared towards a particular population of people, like the artists and academics. Some of those spaces are like, I remember we did a community performance in at the Southside Community Center last year in the Fringe. It was so that audiences can come and speak to us after the performance about certain topics. So it's like thematic. Like it was also part of a little bit of part of Maiden Motherhood that was in that. So thematic in that sense. So I think for us, communities and the dialogical spaces is very important as an organization, because we know that is what we thrive on. We thrive on communities.
Yeah.
And it's something that we hold really close.
No, absolutely. And if people want to get involved, is the best thing to do, again, go to your website and
Right,
all
yes.
the details are there.
Yes.
Absolutely. Website and also our Instagram page if you like to see more photographic or video content. We are very much, I wouldn't say we are active, but we respond very well on our Instagram messages.
If you just remind people the website address, that would be great.
It's theiya.org. It's THEIYA.org. And if you're finding us on Instagram, it's Theiya Arts, as my name is on the screen. Yes.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me. It sounds absolutely fascinating project, and I would almost like to talk to you again once to see what the reaction is, because that kind of interaction, as I said before, the kind of audience side of things is quite rare, and I think often makes for very, very special pieces of theatre.
Yeah.
Thank you for
thank
having
you
this
so much.
conversation with us and helping us really go through the process. It's always wonderful when we can actually reminisce about it. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's an absolute pleasure. And we'll be back soon with someone completely different. Cheers.